Hello, friend. Welcome to the Happy Family Club. We're delighted to have you join us. Our mission is to help you have a happier, stronger family. We do that by bringing you the world's greatest experts in family, marriage, parenting, and relationships. We interview them to discover their secrets, their strategies, their techniques, and bring them to you so that you can cherry pick exactly what you need right now to have more success and more joy in your family.
And if you enjoyed this interview, we encourage you to share it with your friends and your family, and come on to the happyfamilyclub.com and see if you can find more information that's going to help you and your family be happier.
Again, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the interview. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Happy Family Club podcast. We are ecstatic. I mean, I can't even tell you how excited we are to have Russ DeVos back with us. And do you want to, we introduced you before, but those who didn't hear your earlier session, maybe Margie, you can introduce Russ real quick.
Sure. Russ DeVos, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah.
Pleasure. We heard your story last time we interviewed. We had the podcast, and it was incredible. We referred back to that quite a bit.
I've listened to it multiple times and cried multiple times, just with sadness and with joy. You're just amazing. So, yeah.
Russ DeVos, he's a former pastor, award-winning salesman, father of 3, right? Did I remember that right? 3 children, yep. And his wife, Heather, out of the Seattle area is where you're at. He's the founder of Catalyst Coaching, which is really focused on helping parents of defiant and delinquent and drug abusing teens. So he has got a lot of great information for us today. We're so excited for you to share some tips and tricks and helps for parents out there struggling with those same kinds of challenges. Thanks for being here, Russ.
Yeah. You are welcome. Excited.
So a little bit of personal background just for a second on my life, and why I think it's just so valuable for us to talk about what we're going to talk about today, Russ, is I think I mentioned to you before, but I grew up in a world that was pockmarked with drug abuse, defiant behavior, and all kinds of things, from siblings to aunts and uncles. Both my grandfathers were severe alcoholics, and all the range of dysfunctional behavior that went off that. By the way, I'm saying this, I just want to make sure perfectly clear. I love my family more than words can tell. So none of that's derogatory, but I saw firsthand the challenges. I remember, one small little snippet there. One day, my oldest brother had asked my mom if he could go out with some friends to party. She told him no, and they pulled up. And he started walking out, and my other older brother picks up a baseball bat and runs out and steps between my brother and his buddies, and they get an altercation in which my brother beats him with the baseball bat and breaks his arm.
Oh.
and my brother still gets in the car, leaves, and ends up, going to the hospital, gets his arm fixed, and then, ended up in jail for some drug stuff. And this was a small little window. And I remember sitting in my front room next to my mom and just seeing just wretched heartache and pain and suffering from this swirl of stuff that was going on.
Yep.
And, so today, what I know will happen is you have tools to give parents hope, and I want to dive into those in just a second. But I want to say one thing, and that is, in those days, me as a brother, my mom as a mother and a caretaker, and I've got other siblings that have had deviant behavior and drug related problems. Luckily, for some reason, I personally escaped that, but I didn't escape the consequence of it. But here's the thing, Russ, that I noticed, and that was we all had the best interest in mind. Like, we literally I loved my siblings. My mom loved them beyond measure. We wanted to do what was best for them. And looking back now, 20, 30 years later, I think that we did more damage than good. Right? Because we didn't know we literally, I think that our perspectives and our attitudes were just, we didn't know how to deal with this situation. We didn't have the tools, we didn't have the insights. And so all of our efforts, well-meaning as they were, literally made the problem worse. And I don't know, have you seen that? I'm talking about my family, but I wonder if you've seen that in other families, because you've seen more than I have.
He's nodding here.
Yeah.
I think.
Without a doubt. In fact, we were one of those parents for certain. And so one of the major driving premises and driving goals of the Lifeline program that I offer to parents is to help parents become an asset, not a liability to their teens' recovery process. Because as you were just saying, and I just say a hearty amen to it, many parents have a lot of great intentions. They love their kids. They want to help their kids, but the way they help actually doesn't help. There's a book entitled When Helping Hurts. I have it myself back here. That's exactly what it is. The helping is actually hurting. It's actually pushing further into the future the recovery and the process of sobriety and recovery. It's a hindrance, not a help. And so when we work with parents, that's the first premise of this whole course is we're going to help you become an asset, not a liability to your child's recovery.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you're absolutely right.
So I think that one of the biggest challenges there is that there is, well, there's these multi-generational belief systems that, you know, were structured, and there's like the pendulum on each side of, you know, one side it's like, well, you know, we just need to be more authoritative. We need to be dictatorial. We need to clamp down, strict rules. We need to just drop the hammer on this kid, because if we don't, they're going to go crazy. And of course, that, in my view, of course, you might have a different idea, but in my view, that hits the eject button because the kid goes berserk under the pressure, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's the other side of the pendulum, which I've seen in a lot of people, and that's the unconditional love, c'est la vie, whatever you're gonna do. We love you no matter what. We'll just support you no matter what, and just, you know, and we'll just enable and facilitate you till you're dead. And we'll love you the whole time. And we'll go and you know, it's like I've got two siblings that have passed away. One definitely with drug related stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think we loved him right into the ground. I mean, I don't mean that crass. I just, you know, it's been 23 years since he passed away, but so we have this spectrum. And I think that there's multi-generational, from, you know, baby boomers, let's be super strict and beat our kids, to the hippie generation, let's like not do anything. And it's all swirled up in this weird convolutions of stuff. And we're the parents now. It's like, well, what do we do? So I wonder what you see in terms of mindset and perspective and belief, like worldview, and how do we counter that? Yeah.
Oh, well, let's start right at the foundation. With the Lifeline course, it's 3 stages, and I view it literally like building a house. Yeah. And any house that is going to be solid has to have a solid foundation, right? And so what is the foundation? You know, I'm speaking from the perspective of a parent dealing with a delinquent or defiant or drug abusing child, but this really applies to every parent. Yeah. And so the first principle, the first paradigm, mindset that we instill in parents is this: you must anchor your hope for your parenting in God alone. Now, I love the fact that I can speak as a person of faith on this podcast, because this is just so paramount to our journey. Because here's what I was doing and what I've seen so many parents do. First of all, we hook our wagon to outcomes or sources. Now let me explain that. Our hope really is wishful thinking, but it's linked to how are our children doing? How are they progressing? What is their behavior? If they're battling drugs or alcohol, are they becoming sober? And we link our hope to their behavior.
Yeah.
And if it's good, we're up here. If it's bad, we're down here. And so we get on this emotional roller coaster of our hope rises and falls based on things we have no control over.
Mhm.
Or
Can I pause you something right there?
please,
I just want to say, I just had this aha moment. It's like, one thing I've learned about deviant, people and drug addicts is they are awesome at manipulation, and they get these patterns, and I'm probably jumping ahead here, but like, holy mackerel, like I saw, the drug addicts just twist and manipulate this up and down to their own game. Anyway, so sorry, that was just like, I just had this light bulb go off. It's like, oh yeah. Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Agreed.
Just to give you a little sense of what we call in every relationship, and this is really kind of going out in the weeds for a second, but we'll bring it up. That person, and usually there's one parent or another. Sometimes it's both, but typically there's one parent who is more easily manipulated than the other. And of course, that's where the deviant, defiant, whatever kind of child, they go right for that person. We call that person the weak gazelle. The weak gazelle. They're the one in the pack, that the lion has watched and said, I can track this one down. I can hunt this one down. They're the weak link. Yeah. And they always go for the weak gazelle. And so we're always telling parents, don't be the weak gazelle. Don't be that person. And it's funny because when you kind of assign that title, there's this thing inside them says, I don't want to be the weak gazelle. And it really generates some fire in their bones to say, no, not me. I don't want to be that one. So that's exactly right. So no, you don't want to
interrupt and get off into the weeds, but I love it. Let's not be the weak gazelle. Okay. Yeah. Keep going because outcomes.
Outcomes. And so for instance, with a lot of the parents we're working with, they've already sent their child to a program and they get a weekly phone call. And so we meet with a lot of the parents on Tuesdays, and one week that phone call will have gone so well. The child is telling them that we got progress and we're working the program and all that. And the parent will come on to the coaching call and they're just ecstatic. Our child is doing so well. Next week, you just look at their face. The phone call was a total dud, and their child told them he hated him. He shouldn't be at the program. They've made a mistake. They need to bring him home, whatever the case might be. And they're just in the dumpster. And so we tell them, guys, listen, it's got to be water off a duck's back. You cannot hook your wagon and your hope to outcomes, because it'll change like the wind. It'll change like the weather here in Seattle. I mean, it can be 5 different weathers in one day, And then the other is linking your hope to programs, people, etc. And so, for instance, maybe it's a coaching program, maybe it's a teen challenge program, maybe it's whatever, and we link our hope to that. I know when I was looking, we were at the end of our rope with our son, and I was looking all over the nation. I spent about a year researching programs. I had one thing in mind. When I went onto that website, it was, how good are they at fixing kids? That was it. I wanted stats. 95% success rate. What's your success rate? That was my one question. So my hope was firmly hitched to the program, the power. Do you have the power to fix kids? And the reality is, if people are involved, it'll go up and down. And so the first thing we tell parents is, listen, the only rock that is unmovable is Jesus. That is it. And I know it's a process of figuring out what that looks like to hit your hope, to have Jesus himself, God himself, as the anchor of your hope. Yeah. But I will tell you, in this journey, well, here's another major mindset shift, and that is this. So many parents engage in their parenting journey, but then even more specifically in their journey with a prodigal child, and their goal, everything is about fixing the child.
Yes. Yeah.
And what we realize, and this is really the first faulty paradigm that we have to fix, and the premise here is that all of behavior flows out of the way we think. So when we start working with parents, we always address thinking first. So the stage 1 of Lifeline is really addressing faulty mindsets and expectations that will absolutely derail a parent and keep them on this emotional roller coaster. And as long as we're on this emotional roller coaster of hitching our hope to things that are movable, we will never be an asset to our child.
Yeah.
They need us to be solid. They need us to be led by principle, not by emotion.
Yeah.
They do not. Here's the deal. We want to develop a trusting relationship with our child. They intuitively know when we're led by emotion, we are not trustworthy.
That's right.
And we are undermining, our desire is so deep to be able to trust them, to have them be able to trust us. But emotion-led parenting always undermines trust. That child knows my parent is a leaf blowing in the wind, up and down wherever my behavior goes, and really their well-being is based on my behavior.
Wow.
When I'm doing good, they're doing good. When I'm doing bad, they're doing bad. And a child can't trust a parent like that.
Yeah.
So that parent becomes a liability. So the first paradigm after, well, let me give you two kind of pre-paradigms. One is our hope must be hitched only to the rock Jesus. Can't be outcomes or programs or processes. It has to be the person of Jesus. We, in the middle of all of it, we trust him. We know he's at work and we can trust him. Number two is that this isn't about fixing our son or our child. And even as parents who are dealing with normal kids, our parenting ultimately isn't about trying to create and craft this child that we think they should be. I mean, our job is not about fixing or creating. We have one creator.
Yep.
And he's a lot better at it than we are.
Yes.
And so this journey then is about transformation. It's about our transformation first.
Yeah.
It starts with us. So the paradigm that we address right out of the chutes is the fixing paradigm, which just says, if I just fix my delinquent teen as fast as possible, then we can all move on with life.
Yes.
Or he or she won't ruin their life, and so everything is focused on fixing the teen or the child. And the thing we have to tell parents, and I just say it and then let them sit with it. I just tell them, you cannot fix your teen.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You end up just being a control freak trying to fix them. So here's the new paradigm that we replace this fixing paradigm with. It's simply this: I will allow God to work on me. I will trust him with my teen. I will quit trying to fix my teen, and I will just allow God to transform me. You guys, this is so profound. I want to share this with you. I had a conversation with my oldest son this past Sunday. It was unbelievable what he told me. He said this, because I was saying to him, Sam, in the past, I have tried so hard to control your lives. I've meant well, but I haven't. It hasn't worked well. It wasn't the right parenting method. And I told him, I'm now making a goal to step back, to trust you, and to not get involved in your life, and just to allow you to walk your own journey. And I thought that sounded so good. And Sam said to me, Dad, you have made so many changes in your life. He said, there's never been a time when we've needed you in our lives more than now. He said, do not withdraw. You need to step in more than ever before.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I literally could not believe my ears.
Yeah.
But it was because at some point I stopped trying to fix my kids and I allowed God to transform me. And the process continues. But now I've become the parent that I've always wanted to be, where my kids are saying, Dad, we don't want you to step back. We want you to step in.
Yeah.
And they're inviting me to come into their life. And I just can't. It's almost unbelievable to hear it, you guys.
So awesome. I just want to stand up and cheer. It's
I know.
so amazing.
I know.
And, the thing about this is, I want to point out two things that you said. Number one, God is the creator, and he's just way better at it than we are. And it is so true. He knows all the elements, and he understands with his infinite wisdom how everything fits together and where it needs to go. And I think also this idea that we are the parent and have to fix this child. It's like that sort of has this premises of like ownership, like we own this child and they're our responsibility and we have to fix them. And if we don't, then it looks bad on our stewardship. And it's like, well, hold on, wait a minute. Actually, this is God's child. And
absolutely right.
You know, and we get to run this amazing race called life with them and be a guide and a loving mentor with them, but we are not fixing them. We're not correct. You know, it's like, and I think that so many parents wrap up all their identity in their child's behavior, right? So one of the hopes that they're pinned on is, will their child be good? Will they be a great citizen in the world? Will they be whatever, right? Whatever they're thought of as what that kid should be. And whether it's a doctor, lawyer, ditch digger, like they have their hopes pinned.
Yep.
And just to reemphasize one of the things you said, Russ, that I loved, and that is there's really only one unchangeable, imperfect being. And I promise you, it's not me. It's not
100%.
and even my wife, I say Margie is practically perfect in every way, which is true, but there is the practical part, right? And so if we have, just to reemphasize what you're saying, if we have our hopes pinned on a human being or a program created by a human being, it's going to be fallible. It's going to make mistakes. It's going to have a weak link somewhere. It will let us down. But God never, he cannot, it will not happen that he will let us down. And so
that's so good to hear that. Isn't that, that's just a powerful statement.
It is. And it's like, we just have to have that fixed in our mind, because anything else, we're just, we're building the house on the sand, as Christ warned us against doing, right?
Yeah.
And
that's exactly right.
Let's not do that.
Agreed. Agreed. And it's so interesting because you segued perfectly into the second paradigm, and that is, I call it the responsibility paradigm.
Okay.
I'm responsible for fixing my son. Now, what's the difference between the fixing paradigm and the responsibility paradigm? Paradigm number one assumes that we can fix them.
Right.
Yes. And we got to dispel that. You can't.
Yeah.
But then there's this, I'm responsible. We feel this heavy responsibility for our kids. And the second paradigm shift that we address in the paradigm that is faulty is that I'm responsible to fix, to save, etc. I'm responsible for them. And that just puts this massive, literally crushing load on us that we were never meant to carry. Now, without getting into too much detail, one thing that we do teach are the 4 phases of parenting. So this is not exactly scientific, but they're all C's. I'll walk you through them real quick. 0 to roughly 3, you're the caretaker. You are pretty much taking care of everything in those years. Right.
Yeah.
Then you transition into what some would call the cop. And there's a lot of teaching boundaries, and there's a lot of verbal teaching, and there's a lot of no's.
Oh yeah.
As you teach the kids, this is okay, this isn't okay. Here's where you end, here's where others start. And you're teaching what is right, what is wrong. You're a lot of moral teaching. But then you transition, and here's where I blew it. I didn't transition.
You stayed the cop?
I stayed the cop when I should have transitioned to about 13, when they're becoming young adults. And our goal as parents isn't to keep them around us for our life. It's their arrows to be shot out into the world, to be effective in the world. And so the third C then, or the third phase, is coach. About 13 to 18. That's still those junior high and high school years. Now, what does that mean? A coach is still very, very involved in their kid, in the life of the athlete. If you look at it as a team, they're very involved, but they're on the sideline while the child the player is out on the field, if you will. Yeah. And what does the coach do? The coach doesn't run out if he sees the team lining up wrong. He's going to let the flag fly, and then he's going to help them. How do we overcome the failure? He allows the child to fail. And as in that phase of right between junior high and high school, and that age, as parents, it's less words, more modeling with our lives, and allowing consequences to do the teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're there as a coach to say, okay, why didn't that go well? Or why did that go well? Because consequences go both ways. They can make good decisions, great consequences, not so good decisions, bad consequences. Here's one thing I've come to realize. You always hear the story of the person who leaves high school and they were relatively a good citizen in high school, and they go into college and they just go bananas.
Yeah. Yep.
I would be willing to bet you that that's probably in a home where there was high control, cop during the 13 to 18. Yeah. I really believe that part of development with a child is that they have to be able to fail in a safe environment.
Yes.
Especially in their junior high and high school years, where the parent says, listen, failure doesn't threaten us. We're going to use that failure as a teaching opportunity. We're going to let consequences teach, and then we're going to come in and help you see how that works. Yeah. And they get to sow some wild oats. And a parent, we're so afraid of our child making mistakes and not getting the scholarship and all the stuff, and we try to control it all. And our child needs us to step back beyond the sideline. We're right there. I mean, we're not far from them, but we're on the sideline, letting them play the game of life, letting the flag be thrown, letting them fumble, letting them throw the interception, whatever, using the sports analogy. But then we come back and we say, okay, what could we have done differently? What could we have done better? Here's the consequence. And they get to fail in a safe environment. It's very interesting, you guys. The Jewish culture, the Jewish nation, the nation of Israel, and the Jewish people have had more Nobel Prizes per capita than any other people group in history by a long shot.
Yeah.
It's very interesting when you study their culture. They have a very profound environment of mentorship where the younger generation is being mentored by the older generation and allowed to fail in a safe environment, and they don't boot them out.
Right.
They use it as a teaching opportunity. So they get to learn from their failure and they fail forward. And as a result, become brilliant business people.
That's awesome.
And I think that same environment has to be applied to the home with our kids as junior high and high school kids. But so many parents don't understand this. I didn't. I tried to cop them all the way through, and I didn't work with the natural progression of parenting. And I caused so much. My heart was in a good place. I was trying to do the best I knew how, but I didn't love them well. I didn't lead them well. And so I'm picking up the pieces now. We're putting it back together, but
what's amazing to me is the analogy in my mind is Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And you remember they ate the fruit and they suddenly learned good and evil. And God said, okay, you're out. I'll keep teaching you, but you're out. You got to go learn on your own to discern and to figure out what's right and wrong and experience, and go till the ground and sweat of your brow. And it's time for you to go. And I think that there's a really powerful example that God gives us there. What you're talking about is that we can't cop them forever. They can't stay in the safety bubble of the Garden of Eden or our home forever. It's like, hey, I love the coaching analogy. It's like step to the sideline, let them play the game.
Yep.
And then be there to help them.
Yeah.
Because you're not walking up the hill. Yeah, love it.
And so many parents, you guys, the helicopter parenting, and like you said, you've got the two extremes. You got the one parent; they're not even on the sidelines. They're out. They're not even in the stadium. They've left the stadium, and their kids all by themselves. That is one extreme. Then the other extreme is where the coach, he's running out onto the field and he's correcting things in the middle of the game, micromanaging everything. And the ref is looking at him saying, "What are you doing? You're getting the flag because you're out. You got to be right." Yeah. And so just having that mindset and learning as a parent, again, not to be threatened by imperfect kids. They're learning. And
are you telling me that our kids are going to make mistakes? Come on, Russ.
Well, maybe not your kids, but mine.
Well, actually,
together.
Yeah, but isn't that so funny that it's like, oh no, what if my kid makes a mistake? It's like, well, duh, they're human. They're going to. Let's create a safe environment for it. I love that paradigm.
And to see it not as a problem, but an opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's where parents, this is a major paradigm shift that they have to make too, is we can see failure as fatal. Failure isn't fatal.
No.
You just, what some of the best businessmen, they say, I think it was Warren Buffett or one of these great businessmen, he said, fail often, fail fast, fail forward.
Yeah.
Fail often, fail fast, fail forward. And they have no fear of failure because they see it as a learning opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think as parents, if we can see these things, even with, most recently a setback with our own son's recovery, to be able to apply that and say, listen, this is a learning opportunity.
Totally.
For us and for him. This is not a problem. This is an opportunity. What do we still have to learn? How can we still grow? We're clear that our faith isn't fully developed yet. That muscle still can be stronger and a lot stronger. And we don't see it as a problem, but it's an opportunity. And so yeah.
Again, I'm just having so many insights here about, God as a parent, and not to make too many religious analogies or spiritual analogies, but I don't think you can make too many. But anyway, the interesting thing to me is like God knew for a fact if he stuck us down here on earth, we're going to make mistakes. That was the whole point of sending Jesus Christ, right? It's like, it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. Let's create an environment where they can recover from that and grow from that instead of being eternally damned and cast off into outer darkness, weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth. Like, let's create an environment for this. And I think that we can do that. What you're talking about is doing the same thing in our own homes, Russ.
Yeah.
With our children, right?
Yeah.
And we don't do marriage counseling here, but with spouses too. I mean, like the whole environment, right? Is like, okay.
Yep.
By the way, what's the fourth C?
Yeah. Good question. Number 4 then is counselor.
Oh yeah.
And so give a sense of what that looks like. Coach is right on the sideline. A counselor is not on the sideline. A counselor is even further withdrawn in a sense. Yeah. And a counselor, you don't go out in the streets trying to find your clients. I mean, there's some marketing, obviously, with every business, but a counselor, you come to a counselor. You approach a counselor in your time of need. Yeah. And so, for instance, now I'm really, really embracing that role of counselor with my kids, where, and I'm trying to really respect their space as adults.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, what my son told me this past Sunday, that Dad, we need you in our lives more than ever. That is him approaching the counselor and saying, we give you permission to give us counsel.
Right.
And so many parents, the meddling mother-in-law, the meddling father, all that they just want to control their kids' parenting. They want to control everything instead of saying, listen, we're available and we would be happy to share thoughts with you as you would like them. So we're not going to thrust ourselves into your life and dump the dump truck of all of our years of wisdom onto your lap, whether you like it or not. We're not going to do that. We're going to respect you as adults. We're going to respect your space. We're going to respect your family, your marriage, etc. But we're available as counselors should you need us. And that's why parents need to be safe. We've got to be safe individuals with our kids. Yeah. And continue to work on ourselves so that we can be those safe people. Our kids right now need us more than ever before.
Oh,
and
man.
25, 23, and 22. And we're parenting more now than I think we've ever parented.
That's amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we started down the 4 C's here looking at this paradigm of being responsible for the child. And I think really what you're saying is that instead of having that crushing weight of being responsible, we just see that, no, there's different phases from the caretaker to the cop to the coach to the counselor. And immediately that, I'm feeling it now, like that immediately frees up this pressure, right?
Yeah. The responsible for transitions to responsible to.
Yeah.
You guys, that was one of the most freeing little statements, responsible for transitioning to responsible to. And what that means is my whole focus isn't my child. My focus is here. I'm responsible to them to be calm, to have my anger under control. I'm responsible to them to be growing as a dad, to be building my relationship with God so that I have godly wisdom to impart to them. I'm responsible to them for a lot of things. I don't have time to continue to be responsible for them as they grow into their adulthood. I need to I need to transition to this understanding they're going to need me like never before. So I better be ready. I've got to allow God to transform and change me. I'm responsible to them to be a growing man, to be a wiser man than I was a year ago, a month ago, to just continue to grow, because they're going to be looking to me in their later teen years. And then as they pursue marriage, as they are parents, they need me to be wise and to be solid and to be principle and biblically driven versus emotionally driven. So, we're responsible to them, not for them.
Wow.
And that really helped me so much. Oh my goodness. I just realized I need to get in my office and just wrestle it out with God and let him change me.
Yeah. And the other, you keep saying that, which is so interesting. Like, we have to let God transform us. It's this transformation of us and our journey. And what I think is so powerful about that is that at the end of the day, we really cannot change our children. Just the same, like, I can't change Margie. And I think of the analogy of, like, we love gardening, vegetable gardening and stuff. And I can create an environment for that seed to grow.
That's right.
But do I really have any idea how that seed grows or how to make it grow or make it, like, the actual reality is, no, I can only control me. The seed's going to do. I can't control all the bugs. I can't control all the weather. There's like a billion and one things, but I can control me. And so that's what I hear you saying is, like, look, take yourself to God and get square there. Let that transformation happen. And then you and he can partner in the parenting process, right? This responsible to concept. It's awesome.
It's exactly the truth. Here's what a lot of people think. They think, for instance, in a marriage, they think, I'll ask couples this. I'll ask them, how many people have to change for your marriage to change? And I mean, I would say 80% will say both of us have to change.
Yeah.
I tell them, well, that sounds maybe most obvious on the surface of it, but that's not the case.
No.
If even one of you changes by 5%, that marriage gets better by 5%. If it's a positive change. So with our kids, so for instance, with our son, while he's at his program, literally getting worse.
Yeah.
So he came out of his program 11 months later, and he plunged into drug abuse that point. But while he was doing that, my wife and I were working on ourselves for 11 months without him in the home at that point, and we did dramatic and radical changes, and became unified as a couple. I mean, things we had struggled with for years. So when our son got out of his program and came home, he came home to a completely different home. It was like when he went to his program, our yard was a junkyard. His yard was also a junkyard. So both of our yards were a junkyard. But when he came home, our yard was clean. The broken glass and all the rusted out auto parts and all that, they were all gone. They were clean. Yeah. He came home to a home where there was peace, there was unity. There were two people who were learning how to control their emotions, how to trust God, how not to be reactive to behaviors that weren't right, to a plan where there was clear boundaries, clear consequences. I mean, he came home to a radically different environment.
Yeah.
And it changed everything. He chose a month and a half after he got home. He knew mom and dad are a wall. They're not going to separate them. They're a wall. This plan is very clear. And he just said very simply, there was no emotion. A month and a half later, he said, I'm going to be leaving because I don't want to live under these rules. Yeah. And I know that you guys are going to enforce them. And there was no drama.
Yeah.
No yelling. That would have all been the case in the past.
Oh, yeah.
It was, we hugged him. We prayed over him. We blessed him. And out he went down into the far country to basically start his journey of self-destruction.
Yeah. Well, and in the process, look, number one, you couldn't have stopped that self-destruction process anyway. Number two, you have to stay and become that counselor and be anchored to Christ. And I think that's what a lot of parents need to understand and hear is that in the story of the prodigal son, which I know you love, the dad did not go running out, chasing and tracking him down and begging him to come home at every step and counseling about how to spend his money and to not do this drug or not do that. And likewise, when he ended up in the pig slop, the dad wasn't out there scooping him up. The dad sat on the porch, waiting and watching. He was ready when he came back.
That is so profound.
And the thing about it is that in my belief is that whether in this life or the next, they'll come back because they want to connect with God. They want to connect with parents and family. They might not fully repent and change, but they want to come back. And I've seen this in my own family with some of the things I talked about. It's like there's these moments in time where it's like, you know, I had an experience a couple of weeks ago where one of my siblings and I connected with each other, and it was unbelievable experience.
Yeah,
we don't have time to talk about it, but there was a brief outreach of him to me because we've stayed solid. And he was like, man, maybe one day I'll get back there. And I was like, okay, look, this is a touch point. I'm grateful for it. And then, you know, he returned to his life. I returned to mine, but we're still here and he knows it.
Yep.
And I think there's an amazing power there, right? There's
exactly right.
So
we can't and we won't if we're parenting biblically, healthfully, we're exercising the tough, healthy love that God exercised in the story of the prodigal son. Yeah. There were 6 distinct steps down into the pig pen in that story. 6 distinct steps. Here's what we see with parents, and I walked them through. This is lesson number 3 of Lifeline. I walked them through all 6, and I share the story, and then we have a very clear action point. Don't go after your child. Number 2, stay right on the porch, as you said. Stay on the property. Stay on the property. Stay on the property. Stay on the property. Yeah. And the last one, I believe it says, no one was giving him anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm convinced in that story that he, at some point when he and that hog were nose to nose fighting over that, he saw himself in that pig and said,
exactly,
that's my reflection. That is who I am. And it said he came to his senses and he got up out of there. And then there are 8 very clear indications of what heart change looks like when a prodigal comes home. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's beautiful.
Okay, I'm going to pause you because I think that's like a whole nother interview, or we put a seminar on and you come and teach or something. But that sounds like a whole program. In that's like a beautiful and I think you mentioned to me that there was 3 or 4 or 5 paradigm shifts, and I think we've talked about 2 of them. And can you share 1 or 2 more with us? Because
I'll do it quickly. Yes, I'll do it quickly. Number 3 is the perfect solution.
Go ahead.
Number 3 is the perfect solution or the quick fix paradigm. In other words, if we deal perfectly with this situation, it will resolve right away. There is some sort of a magic formula for this situation to be quickly fixed. And, so many parents, they fall into that. And what I tell them is this, guys, what has taken years to get tangled up won't get untangled overnight. Yeah. You've got to let go of this quick fix mindset. So the new paradigm is simply this: I'm in this for the long haul, no matter how long it will take. Lord, I trust you. That's really it. It's God. It's not about where's the finish line. That's not our business. That's God's business. Our business is to say, I'm in it. I'm hitched to the Lord Jesus, and I'm with him for the long haul. And no quick fixes. So that's the third paradigm. And a lot of parents, that rocks their world, but they have to get over this quick fix. It's going to be just over very quickly, or else they just spin out in depression, disillusionment, despair. They go into despair.
I just want to comment on something on that. I think that in my view, we live in a society that I think has gone to great lengths to create fixed mind, perspectives and beliefs. In other words, we'll take education as an example. You go to school, you get a degree, and you're done.
Right.
Now you go get a career, and then you work that career, and you're done. It's like there's this magical endpoint to this journey of life that we've fixated on as a society.
Yep.
And I think that it's insanely detrimental, like incredibly detrimental, because versus a growth mindset of we're not seeking end destinations except for one, and that is to return back to God. But in that, everything else is a journey.
That's right.
And we're growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And, this idea about a quick solution, a formula, a mindset, a silver bullet, I think that, I think a lot of people feel like, because number one, it's such a fun idea. It's like, oh, like one little program in my child's fixed. This is great, right?
Yep.
Totally fake. But anyway, it's like, it's a fun, appealing idea.
Yep.
But I think the other thing is that a lot of parents, they themselves are in a fixed growth, a fixed growth mindset as opposed to an elastic or variable growth mindset.
Yep.
And I think what you're doing here, Russ, is you're pulling them out of that. And anytime we pull out of our comfort zone, it kind of hurts. But
better believe it. That's right.
But the result of that is a miraculous change of heart. Life.
Right.
God said that he gives peace that surpasses understanding. And I think this is one of the ways that he does it, is helps us understand, like, oh, this event is not the end. This behavior is not the person. We continue to grow and become, and God's not done with us, and he's certainly not done with our kids yet.
That's right.
And I think having that perspective that, oh, you know what, this might be a big mistake right now, but it's not an end destination. We just get to keep growing, And I think, like, even my siblings, I've got two siblings that have passed away. My mom's passed away. I've got another sibling that's staring down the barrel of prostate cancer and may only be with us for another couple of years, right? And you know what? I just think God says he's eternal. I just don't know that he's done with them even after death. So I think that we get to have this ongoing growth mindset, and that's I just think it's amazing what you're talking about here. So yeah, be in this for life, right? It's like, I'm in this for the long haul. It's beautiful.
One thing is, you look at all these paradigms that are faulty, almost at the base of all of them is control.
Yeah.
We want to control, we want to control our kids. We want to control their behaviors. And then when we realize we can't control our kids, we want to control the timeline for when they get fixed. and then paradigm number 4 is the guarantee paradigm. Well, we sent them to private school, Christian school, took them to church. We were great parents, blah, blah, blah. That's a formula, the formula / guarantee paradigm. We did all the right things. Therefore, boom, out the back end comes this perfect child.
Right.
And biblically, you can just destroy that in a heartbeat. I mean, God is the father, right? Adam and Eve, the first children, were delinquent, defiant, drug abusing, in the sense that they went for the bad tree, right? They were all of the above, and they had the perfect father. So this idea that, oh, we did all this right, how can it possibly be? Well, go to Genesis chapter 3 and you'll answer your question real quick.
Right. Yeah.
And so the new paradigm is, listen, we will do all that we know with God's help to raise our kids right, but we understand there's no guarantees.
Yeah.
They're gonna turn out right, whatever that looks like, right? I mean, we have this picture of what that even looks like. And so we get rid of the formulas, again, trying to control that part of life. And then the 5th paradigm is it's my fault paradigm. And this one says, I'm the one responsible for my prodigal teen being messed up. It's all my fault.
Wow.
And so the first one is, I've done everything right. They should turn out right. This one is, I've done everything wrong. It's all my fault. And here are 3 major offshoots or bad fruits of that. Number 1 is depression.
Yeah.
When you start taking blame, you live in depression. That creates a sense of finality and hopelessness. This is all there is. It's nothing we can do about it, and despair. Number 2 is distraction. It weighs us down and clouds our view, because people who are busy focusing on who's to blame and all of that, they're not getting busy finding a solution to take things forward. They're just distracted by their own shame and guilt. And then the third is debilitation. When we're all loaded with guilt and shame about it's our fault, we allow the teen to see themselves as a victim of us.
Yeah.
We victimize the teen.
Yeah.
And then with us as parents, and you see this in King David's life after he failed so terribly, you look at his parenting with his kids, it was horrendous.
Yes.
I'm convinced that King David never, ever truly understood that I blew it and I'm going to fail forward. He lived in that failure and allowed his children. He didn't step in as a strong leader into their lives and say, this is not right. He was very permissive. And so when we live under this "it's my fault" paradigm, we're debilitated as parents, and we become weak, and we let our kids off the hook, and we don't, because, well, who am I to say anything? I've blown it so badly.
I've blown it, right?
And it just destroys us. Destroys might be it really debilitates us as parents.
Yeah.
So,
well, and we also we're teaching our child that they are not responsible for it. Like, I would have turned out right, but Dad told me so many times that I'm actually his problem. So, I mean, clearly I don't have to have any responsibility for my own life.
Right.
And it changes everything up. You know, it's interesting. This twofold idea that I did everything right and I did everything wrong, and there's formula based and there's quick fixes. I keep thinking of the phrase where God says he's the Lord of the harvest, right? And really the outcomes are not our job.
That's right.
He tells us to thrust our sickling. He tells us to go to work. He tells us to do what we can do, but he's really the Lord of the harvest. And he's going to produce what he needs to produce based on. The other thing that I think of is like, I actually have no idea who God has ordained my kids to be. And I have no idea what their journey needs to be for them to become that. I really don't.
Yes.
I'm not omniscient. And he gets it. And I think that there's sometimes like, I know one of our children was the most curious little bug. And, you know, we were at a house one day, and the old proverbial hand on the stove, but it was this huge, it was actually up in Seattle. It was in Paulsbo. We were at this friend's house, and they had a wood burning stove sitting there. And he was, how old was Joshua? Like,
less than 2.
He's like 2 years old. He was into everything curious. And we kept saying, look, that's hot. Don't touch it. And we turned our back and he went, so seared that whole hand right on. And instead of freaking out and getting mad at him, we're like, okay, we'll help you bandage it up. But, you know, I was like, oh. So I think that we need to allow those outcomes and this perspective and realize God's the God of the harvest, and he's going to create the outcomes that he needs for them in their journey, because he loves them and he's working them to come back home, and we just get to play a part, right? So anyway,
I love that. The Lord of the harvest, he is. I tell parents all the time, guys, your responsibility is vertical.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a super highway that goes straight to heaven.
Yep.
And then his responsibility is horizontal.
Yes.
Stay out of his business. Stay out of his business. Obedience, not outcomes.
Yes.
Horizontal outcomes, that's God's business. Don't meddle in your business. Your business is just to find out what his marching orders are and obey. Yeah. And when you do your job, he absolutely will do his job. Yeah. We can take that to the bank. And so
I want to say something as a marketer really quick, because I think a lot of people listening to this, there's another piece of the puzzle here that I think is really important for people to have eyes wide open. And that is, look, here's the reality. Now, I'm a marketer. I'm a business development guy. I get it. But the reality of it is a lot of these paradigms you've talked about, Russ, there are individuals out there exploiting us as parents for those ends, right? They're selling the quick fix. Yeah. They're telling us that it's not our fault, or it is our fault. They're telling us that you've done everything right, and they're soothing us with, you know, these false words and whatnot. And then on the flip side, you know, you talked about distraction and debilitation. And so we now live in a world where, you know, companies like Facebook, and I'm not trying to vilify anybody, but I'm just eyes wide open, right? But we've got companies like Facebook and other social media platforms who literally hire addiction experts to try to enslave the minds of the people so that they can make more money, right? And so if we're feeling sad or depressed, we can go get a dopamine hit by scrolling through Facebook or TikTok or whatever, right? Now, I'm saying this because I think that those technologies can be used for good. I think that there's some neutral stuff there, but I also know that there is an enemy to our souls, and there is a power that wants us to be depressed and distracted or feel like we're omnipotent and it wasn't our fault and all these things that are not godly, and it wants to destroy our life. And we are swimming in a sea of forces that are moving our minds to do this. And what I want to say to parents is that just go into this whole thing with eyes wide open. What Russ, what you've talked about here is truth, and the truth will set us free.
Yes.
And we don't need to fall prey to all of this stuff. It's like what you said, like all I did, I was running around the country looking for the guy who had put on his website that had a 95% success rate, right? Well, you were vulnerable to these marketing tactics, and in the long run, in some ways, I think it probably hurt you and your family. And not to say that we shouldn't buy programs, because I think that in some cases we should. Not to say we shouldn't have help and coaches and counselors. I'm just saying, let's just be aware that the hope is not pinned on those. It's in God, and sometimes God will use those things to further us on our journey.
That's
right.
And that's a great balance, because there are good things, but I started with a couple last night who their 12-and-a-half-year-old daughter is King Kong in their family, and they're scared to death of her, the only child. And I told them, I just said, you guys, listen, I'm going to pour everything I've got.
Yeah.
I really believe we're going to see radical change with your family. But I told them, because we went through this lesson about outcomes and programs. And I told them, you don't pin your hope to me. You don't pin your hope to this program.
Yeah.
Your hope must be pinned to the Lord Jesus. Yeah. The story in Numbers 21, where the people were complaining and grumbling, and God sent snakes into the camp. I don't know if you remember that story. Yeah. And the people all of a sudden realized we blew it. And then they went to Moses and they said, pray to God and ask him to take away the snakes.
Yeah.
He didn't take away the snakes.
No, he did not.
He said, Moses, you're to form a bronze snake. You're to hang it on a pole. And the people who get bitten are to go and they're to look up to the bronze snake on the pole, which we know in John chapter 3, that is a foreshadow of the Lord Jesus on the cross.
Yep.
Yeah.
In it being our Savior and our Redeemer. And so I told him, listen, that is your anchor.
Yeah.
You don't come to me and ask me to help you get rid of the snakes. You go to Jesus and you look up to him and you receive his grace and his mercy when you need it, as you need it. And that can be dozens, hundreds of times, even a day.
Yeah, that's right.
So many.
That's right.
Well, the whole scripture of a child shall rule over them, in the latter days, in the last days. And that's what we're seeing so much.
Yeah.
With our children.
And we need to shift that paradigm and look to God and raise our family in godly ways and biblical ways. So,
yeah.
Okay, well, Russ, doggone it.
We're
out of time again.
But can you tell our people how to connect with your program?
Yeah.
How do they find you online?
I think the simplest way is to go to my website, catalystcoachinghq.com. Catalyst Coaching HQ, as in headquarters, .com. There are opportunities there to set up what I call a Stop the Chaos Zoom consultation. It's a free call to just talk about what's going on in your family and how we might be able to turn it around working together. The other is to get a free, it's called the Lifeline Quick Start Guide. It's essentially my whole program bullet pointed, all the steps, all that I teach in the course in short bullet points, not built out like the whole course, but enough so they get a clear understanding of what the course is and how to walk from chaos to calm and confident with a plan. And so catalystcoachinghq.com, I think that's the best place for people to go.
Awesome.
I love it. Well, Margie and I are _ exclamation point, bold, all caps, encouraging people to go and to check that out, especially if you're facing this situation with a delinquent or, drug abusing child or some sort. And again, I started this off talking about the challenges that I've seen in my own life with siblings and relatives and family, and the way that that's hurt them. And I've also seen the challenge that it is of being an asset in your child's life versus a liability.
Yep.
And the crazy part about it is, guys, is that this moving from an asset to a liability is not overly complicated. It just requires a handful of paradigm shifts and understanding a little bit better how God works. And I think that is what, Russ has devoted his life to, being transformed by the Lord. I know that about you. It's why I love you so much and just admire you so much, is that there's this endless, relentless commitment to Christ and to be transformed by him. And because of that, you've now said, okay, I'm going to be God's hands in helping other people walk that same journey, not focusing on you, but on him. So anyway, that's my strong underscored pitch of, if you need help in this category, we really believe Russ is like your best option. He's grounded in Christ. He's got experience, and he's got the tools and the resources. You saw today, I mean, these paradigm shifts that he talked about are absolutely stunning. They're powerful. So anyway, that's our encouragement. Go check him out.
You guys are awesome. This is more fun than we deserve. I mean, it's so good.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to. I think it's just kind of a chat. I feel like I'm sitting right across from you in Arkansas there. So
I know. Well, we feel the same way. We admire you tremendously. So
we'll
give our love and blessings to Heather and your children, and can't wait to visit with you another time.
All right.
Let's do it. Look forward to it.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.